So it's your turn now to ask us for a definition.
Yes, and I was trying to define this myself, and like always, I don't know really how. And I wanted to ask your opinion. I'm ready to listen to what you have to say about my definition.
Okay, but you're not giving us the word, you're giving us a drawing.
This is a definition, definition of a word.
And we have to guess
this.
which word
Yes.
is that and define it.
Yes.
Well, I think I've got an idea.
This
Might
is
be
how
risk.
I see the word. What do you think, Fred?
I don't know. Crisis.
That could be a crisis, actually, more than risk.
Why?
Because I think risk would be more excited. This looks a bit panicky.
He looks like somebody who doesn't know where to go. There's movement, but it's movement on the same spot to me. So that's why I think it's crisis, because you turn around, you don't know what to do.
Actually, it could be risk the moment before facing the risk. Jumping down it's like somewhere and he's trying to escape and then taking a risk to find an alternative route.
What do you think?
I see what the symbolic language is incredibly rich. It very much depends on the state, on associations, and it's very difficult to define what is actually.
What do you see? Yeah.
Well, I see the creature with bending knee, and that could mean anything. Depends on why it happened. What is the creature?
Does he look happy?
He doesn't.
No.
He doesn't look happy.
This is where now I think more is crisis more than risk, because risk can make people excited somehow. I mean, if you think about your practice, taking risks is an exciting moment.
It's a requirement, yes.
Yeah. Whereas crisis is something that frightens people anyway. I don't see any crisis that could make people feel happy.
So shall we define crisis then?
All agree on crisis.
Yeah, I think we agree on crisis.
Karen?
And it was crisis.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. You're doing really well. Because for me, crisis has to do with the emotional state of helplessness in a way. There are things happening around you that you cannot really control. You only have to react to it. And not in a risky, safe, fun way. Never it is. It's helpless and it is scary. And that's how I see what crisis is. But it's good to know that it's conveyed really well.
It does. Even if what we're trying to do with this project is actually to make people don't feel like this,
Yes.
even in a crisis.
Yes.
Yeah. Crisis for me, though, it's the time of decision. I refer to the etymology of a word in Greek. And if I remember well, it was used at a time during tragedy competitions, when the judges will sit down and decide who had written the best tragedy or play. So perhaps it could have been comedies as well. And so this moment of decision by the judges was called a crisis moment. And what remains of this etymology is the time of decision. I think that crisis is a time where you have to make decisions. And sometimes you make the good decision and sometimes the bad decision. But it's the crux time. It's a time where I think you might be paralyzed from making a decision, but you know that you have to make a decision. Yeah. And it's very hard because it can stop you, and you might come to regret the decision, but you know that this is it. You need to leave, you need to escape, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. Time of decision.
Yeah, I agree with this notion of time. And actually, I was thinking more about speed, because it's also about taking decisions at a different speed. Because we constantly take decisions, but in time of crisis, we really need to have a different pace. So And sometimes again, back to emotions, sometimes this pace is not the one that our body and brain can actually embrace. So we need to act fast, but our emotional reaction makes us paralyzed. So it's actually this contrast between different speed, different dynamics within a certain time, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Because, as you said, it comes from the word when they have to decide. Some people are terrified of deciding. They have the choice, but perhaps they don't know that they have the choice. Or perhaps they are terrified of the consequences of the choosing that they have to make. So we're hoping that that decision is not as scary or deprivating.
Yeah, and actually it's linked to more definitions like responsibility as well.
Definitely.
Who is taking the responsibility and who is willing to actually look for somebody who could take that responsibility and trust, therefore, in those decisions which are made in times of crisis.
I would like to add some positive words about crisis, if I may. So crisis is a time of a tremendous pressure. In a time of crisis, people normally feel very stressed and maybe lost. But in the same time of crisis is a time of incredible possibilities. So for me, world crisis is like a double-sided sword or double-faced creature. So if I were drawing crisis, I will draw a two-faced creature. Because from one point of view, it might have the face of the horror, but from another point of view, it's a blessing. Because it's really a new opportunity for a new life. It's like, say, butterfly, which were caterpillar before. When a caterpillar reaches a crisis of change, it's most probably a very horrible and very difficult time of transformation. But that crisis is necessary, but the caterpillar will move to the next stage of its development and become a beautiful butterfly.
Well, that's a great perspective, actually. And again, we are just trying to define these words and the beauty of these conversations that we all bring in different perspectives. So what would be your definition of crisis?